Okay, done?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
There are some that I do not know at all.
Now, Sumaya, have you done ecology yet?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. Now, wetland are important ecosystem. Researchers studied the feeding relationship between the organism in area of wetland on the coast of Africa. As part of the food web that they studied, this is quite an easy question. It says giving the name of one organism from the food web for each rule. Okay, remember when you do your food chain and the food web, you have the producer. After producer, you have your primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer. Right. Okay. Now, name of one organism for each row. The producer. So which one are the producer?
Grass, clover,
Grass.
algae, phytoplankton.
Grass, clover, algae, or phytoplankton. Secondary consumer?
Marsh rice rat. Marsh rice rat.
Marsh rat,
Mycetes shrimp.
Toad crab,
shrimp,
or
bald eagle.
eagle, or
Blenny.
right.
Yes.
An animal that feed at 2 trophic level?
Bald
Is
eagle.
it a muskrat?
Bald eagle, because bald eagle is a
Consumer and also a tertiary consumer.
Eat at 2 trophic levels.
It's a primary, secondary consumer, or it can also be a tertiary consumer. Primary, secondary, tertiary consumer. Bald eagle, right? Or otherwise, anything else you get?
Lemon.
Okay, which one will be less affected by any changes in the habitat? Which one will be the least affected, you think? If there's any change in the habitat, which one will be the least affected? Do you understand my question or not?
Huh?
You understand my question?
What was it, teacher?
My question was, if anything happened to the habitat, which organism is the least affected?
The algae and the phytoplankton.
Why?
Because they can still create their own food from photosynthesis.
Okay, remember this. If anything, you're talking about those with a multiple food source. Multiple food source, meaning the bald eagle will not be affected much if the snow goose, if the population of snow goose decrease, population of bald eagle will still be okay because they still have marsh rice rat and the muskrat. Okay, so remember. Now, the functioning of ecosystem relies on cycling of nutrients, issue part of the nitrogen cycle. So nitrogen cycle, remember at the end of it, you always talk about plant what? Right. So how do they get the nitrogen? They get it they get it in the form of nitrate. Okay, at times they give you question that asks you by the until it ends up. Okay, what do plant use nitrate for? Anyone?
For DNA.
Right, it make up
The
for protein because nitrate combined with
nitrate combined with glucose.
C6H12O6.
Okay, now so here this nitrate come either as fertilizer. Okay, you talk about ammonium fertilizer like ammonium sulfate or nitrogen based fertilizer. Okay, or there are some plant that have legumes, okay, leguminous plant. So this leguminous plant, example of it will be clover. Okay, so this plant will have these root nodules. Okay, the root will have, or otherwise if you see peanuts, if you pull up peanuts, you notice you do have this, and some plant do have this. This is root nodule. nodules, inside the root nodules would be this bacteria you call, anyone remember? Anyone? Rhizobium
So,
species.
Oh,
So you have rhizobium species. This bacteria live in the root nodules. And the function of the bacteria is actually it's a nitrogen fixer. Okay? It fixes nitrogen, it changes nitrogen in the air into nitrate. Okay, so this nitrate will be absorbed by the root nodules. This is a symbiosis because the rhizobium will give nitrate to the plant and the plant will give what in return?
glucose.
Glucose, right? Okay, so this is a symbiotic relationship. Okay, so you have, this is what I call nitrogen fixing. Okay? Rhizobium is a nitrogen fixing bacteria. Because in the air, between the soil, there will be air, right? So in air, there will be nitrogen. So rhizobium has this ability to change nitrogen in the air into nitrate. Now you can either get nitrogen-based fertilizer or you can also take it from manure, right? Okay, they do, at times they do ask you as well. So manure, you know what manure is, right? Everyone? You know what manure is?
Powder.
No. Right, tai ayam, tai kambing, tai burung, tai kelawar, and all those are manure. And what is in manure? They will ask you, how does manure provide nitrogen to the plant? Anyone?
From methane.
Methane is from apa Min?
How fast?
Yeah, as well as when you talk about fermentation and all those. Okay, manure. What is in manure? Ami, do you know what is in manure?
no.
No. Okay, it's undigested manure
Un-
comes from the feces of the animal. So what's inside?
Undigested fruit.
Undigested protein, right? So this undigested protein, once it go to the soil, in the soil you have what you call decomposers. Okay, these decomposers are the bacteria and the fungi, right? And bacteria and fungi will change this undigested protein into ammonium
Ammonium.
ion. Okay, this ammonium ion will be changed into nitrate by this nitrifying bacteria. Nitrifying bacteria like the nitrobacter, nitrosomonas, and all those. So this nitrate will be absorbed by the root. Okay. Now another one. How else? You have nitrogen in the air, and during lightning, in the air will, remember, lightning has very high temperature. Recall back your chemistry, right? Nitrogen only react at high temperature. Example of it would be what, Nina?
This is it.
It only react at high temperature. What are example of it? Why do nitrogen react only at high temperature? Recall back your chemistry.
Because it has a high
Yes,
boiling point.
boiling point, and
High boiling point is at room temperature. Try again.
because it has a triple bond.
Yes, it's a triple bond. It has a high bond energy. So it only act at high temperature. Example of it is during lightning. Example of it would be exhaust fumes. Remember?
Oh yes.
Temperature of the engine causes nitrogen to oxygen to
Causes the nitrogen in the air.
remember? So another example of it is nitrogen during lightning. Lightning gives you a very high temperature. So nitrogen in the air combined with oxygen to form oxides of
Oxides of nitrogen.
Nitrogen.
monoxide, nitrogen dioxide that dissolve in water to give you nitrous acid and nitric acid. Okay, that goes to the soil. Okay, this is how plant get nitrogen. Remember that. So you have nitrogen in the air. Okay, during lightning, nitrogen in the air combined with oxygen to form nitrous acid and nitric acid. Okay, and which goes to the soil, and then the plant will absorb the nitrate. Okay, or otherwise they can get it from nitrogen-based fertilizer like ammonium nitrate, urea, and all those. Or otherwise, they can take it from manure, right? Manure have undigested protein decomposers will change the undigested protein to ammonium ion. Ammonium ion will be changed into nitrate by the nitrifying bacteria. Okay, and the leguminous plant, some plant will have Rhizobium species in their legume that is able to change nitrogen in the air into nitrates. And then remember, death and decay of plant and animal death and decay. Again, you talk about decomposition.
Decomposition.
Decomposition, again, you talk about the same case as the manure just now. Okay, so you have to know this. So this is your nitrogen cycle. This is what you call your nitrogen cycle. You have nitrogen cycle and you have your carbon cycle. What about your carbon cycle? You have water cycle, carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle. What about your carbon cycle?
Organisms.
Remember, you talk about respiration.
Respiration.
Right. Okay. Respiration give off carbon dioxide in the air. Carbon dioxide is taken by the plant through photosynthesis.
Through photosynthesis.
Through photosynthesis. Death and decay, decomposition will give you, right?
Carbon dioxide.
Decomposition will give you back carbon dioxide in the
Into
air.
the air.
And then death and decay also, some of it we talk about fossilization, right? So you have fossil fuel, burning of fossil fuel give off carbon dioxide. And you also have to know water cycle, which you have learned from preschool. So be good with all those, okay? Now, if they ask you a question like this, why is it that energy, okay, they will give you a question like energy is lost along the food chain, but nutrient is recycled, okay? You have your nutrient. Okay. Nutrient, when you say nutrient cycle means you talk about nitrogen, you are referring to nitrogen cycle in the form of nitrate and you're talking about carbon. Now, statement given in your past paper, energy is lost along the food chain, okay? But the nutrients are recycled. Why? Anyone? Maya, do you know the reason why?
I don't.
Decomposing.
Why? Why do you think so?
Because of the decomposing.
Akina, do you know why nutrient need to be recycled?
Oh,
Rania, any idea why nutrient need to be recycled? Okay.
is it to ensure that all the organism will have nutrients?
All organism will have nutrients. You talk about nutrients here, you're talking about carbon and nitrogen and water. But basically carbon and nitrogen. Nina, just make a guess. Don't worry, just try. Right? Like, give you 2 marks.
So that plants can take in the nutrients to photosynthesize.
Nina, why do you think so?
So that all the organism can get the nutrient.
Organism can get the nutrient. Okay, energy is lost along the food chain. So when we do that, you'll see later the energy is lost along the food chain, but nutrients is recycled. Balkis. Balkis,
Yes.
any idea why nutrient need to be recycled?
Mm. Mm. Okay.
Try. If you get it wrong, it's okay. At least you try.
Is it for the decomposition?
For the decomposition.
Yeah.
Okay, now everyone, think again. What are living things made up of?
Carbon.
What are living things made up
Oh,
of?
cells. Sorry.
What are cells?
Yeah.
Cells are made up of
are you made up of?
Cells.
What are cells made up of?
Protein.
What are proteins
Protein.
made up of?
Protein are made out of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen
Why nutrients be recycled?
for the production of protein.
Because all living things are made up of protein. Protein are made up of carbon and nitro.
Nitrogen.
Nitrogen.
You get it? Because part of you, of all you know, part of you is actually coming from T-Rex. I mean, why? Long
Because
ago, T-Rex died, and then the fossil of the T-Rex become fossil fuel, and then burning of fossil fuel by the lorry give off carbon dioxide, which is taken up by the pokok padi, right? That is incorporated as starch in the rice, in the grain of rice that you eat, that makes you. Okay. Now you breathe out that carbon dioxide. That carbon dioxide is taken up by an apple tree. That is glucose that is eaten by sucking up. You get that?
yeah.
Remember Lion King? When the father told him, oh, those and beyond that are your kingdom, blah, blah, blah. But you have to take care of it because we are all connected in this circle of life.
Life.
So get it?
Wow.
Okay?
That's a very
So
good.
they do ask you why. Give you a statement like energy is lost along the food chain. However, nutrient is recycled, and why nutrient need to be recycled. Remember, the answer is simply all living things are made up of protein, and protein are made up of carbon and nitrogen. Okay. Now, the functioning of ecosystem relies on cycling of nutrient. If they ask what does it mean by functioning of ecosystem relies on cycling of nutrient? The reason is because ecosystem are made up of organisms. Okay, when you talk about ecosystem, it's interaction between biotic and abiotic. So you have a biotic component, which is the living component of an ecosystem, and all living components are made up of living things, and all living things are made up of carbon and hydrogen. So therefore, nutrients need to be recycled. So it's just part of the nitrogen cycle. So you start off with ammonium ion to nitrates ion. So this is a function of the nitrifying bacteria. So the nitrogen gas in the air into nitrate ion. So what process B? Is either you talk about lightning,
Lightning.
talk about nitrogen fixing,
Fixing.
we're talking about the root nodules. And ammonium ion to nitrate ion, this is nitrifying bacteria. Nitrifying bacteria, which is nitrosomonas, nitrobacter, and all those. Nitrate ion to the plant is by means of what?
Active transport.
Transport.
By means of active transport. Right.
Active transport.
Amino acid in plant and protein plant. Amino acid in plant into protein in plant is protein synthesis.
Synthesis.
And then the death of the plant will be protein in dead plant and ammonium ion. So this process is
Composition.
decomposition. The decomposers, which is the bacteria and the fungi, will change the protein in the plant and animal into ammonium ion. And it's the nitrifying bacteria that change the ammonium ion into nitrates ion. Okay? Because they will give you many. There's one pulse paper they give you, kalau you nampak dalam, kadang-kadang you beli beras, you tak guna lama, then you nampak that weasel, that black thing, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, dalam beras tu. Ataupun tepung ke. And pulse paper, there's one pulse paper, it says, whatever, that thing, I can't remember. It's in flour, and then it feeds on the carbohydrate in the flour. And then it also it also urinate and the feces and everything, and what happened to the feces and the flour, blah 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 blah, all those basic concept. Okay, basic concept of when you talk about undigested protein decomposition. Okay, to give you the ammonium ion. Now state the name of the process A and give the type of organism that convert ammonium ion to nitrate ion. So now, before, how many of you can answer this question? Yes or no?
Yes, but
You can answer.
not complete.
Okay. So what is the organism now? It's a nitrifying.
Interesting.
The process
Fine.
is, what is the process?
Yeah.
What is the process?
Nitrification.
Nitrification. Okay, it's nitrification. Nitrification. And the type of organism is
Nitrifying
Yeah.
bacteria.
nitrifying bacteria. Right.
Do
If you
you
remember,
know the bacteria names in detail?
no. There will be times when when you can articulate that, but this is type of organism, so it's just nitrifying bacteria. Okay, the
Right.
next is Nitrobacter, Nitrosomonas, and all those. Okay, they can even give you a 7 marks question asking you what is the role of microorganism in maintaining the soil fertility. That is one question, 7 marks, all day. Okay, so you go back, that will be your homework today. Based on what you learned just now, answer that question. What is the role of bacteria in maintaining soil fertility? Do that for your homework, okay? Try get 7 marks. So what is the role of bacteria, or role of microorganisms, sorry. Role of microorganism in maintaining soil fertility. So you have to talk all the way, okay? But remember as well, you have to return back this nitrogen into the air. So to return back nitrogen into the air, you have this bacteria you call denitrifying bacteria. Okay, you have nitrogen fixing bacteria, you have nitrifying bacteria, you have denitrifying bacteria, and you have decomposers, which are bacteria and fungi. Okay. Now describe how nitrate ion enters the root of plant, shown by arrow C. Okay, Sakina, would you like to read the answer?
Sure. My answer is nitrate ions enter root of plants by active transport against the concentration gradient using ATP produced by aerobic respiration.
You get 2 marks. You miss one thing.
Oh, okay.
Ina, read the answer.
The nitrate ion enters the root of the plant by active transport. The water potential moves against the concentration gradient, which gets its energy from the respiration of the root, and with the help of the transport protein, which changes the shape and push it upwards.
Cuba Ina baca the first 2 sentences tadi sekali lagi. Read.
This is it.
No, just read, just read.
The nitrate ion moves against the concentration gradient.
Okay, lagi. Lepas tu dia kata,
And gets the energy from the respiration of the root, and with the help of the transport protein, which changes the shape and push it upwards.
you mentioned about water potential tadi.
I heard water potential as well.
I heard water potential too. Okay. You know what I mean, right?
I mean mistake.
Yes. So be careful. Don't mix up water with
Ion.
Ion.
just before. They can ask you, they can give you small intestine, whatever, or they can even give you the nephrons, and they ask you how the movement of ion. So first, what? The nitrate ion attach itself to
To the transport protein.
right, the transport protein change shape, or transport protein will transport the nitrate ion down
Against concentration gradient
concentration gradient
with the help of ATP.
stop. And then what did I say? Full stop. This process require energy
Energy.
in the form of ATP. So this is your mark. You have to mention about the transport. You have to mention about against concentration gradient, the process requires energy. Okay. So they ask you, like, remember we did the, apa hari tu kita buat? I think the chloride or whatever, kan? So always remember is whatever ion they give you, attach to the transport, attach itself to the protein that transport the ion into the cytoplasm of the root hair cell, okay, by means of active transport. The ions move against concentration gradient and the process requires energy. That's 3 marks for you. Okay, now you have to try to make it clear. Okay, if you make three sentences instead of a long sentence that jumble up everything. Okay, so nitrate ion attach itself to the transport protein. That, okay, full stop. Transport protein apa will transport nitrate ion into the cytoplasm of the root hair cell against concentration gradient. Full
But
stop.
teacher, do you have to say by means of active
Yes,
transport?
you have to mention the transport.
Okay.
And, the process requires energy. Okay. Now, take the name of the structure in plant cell where process D occurs.
Ribosome.
Amino acid to protein in plant is ribosome. What process do you call it?
Oh, it's ribosome.
What do you call it?
Protein synthesis.
Protein
Now,
synthesis.
what part of protein synthesis is that?
The translation.
Translation, yes. Okay. Describe translation.
tRNA translates the
mRNA
mRNA on the ribosome
into sequence of,
into sequences of amino acids
yes, sequence of amino acid, and then what happened?
along the rough edge.
It's changed into, the polypeptide is changed into
The polypeptide is changed into protein.
plasmic reticulum. Remember, translation is mRNA, a tRNA will translate the mRNA into sequence of amino acid. That happened at the ribosome. Now the rest of the protein synthesis, from the primary structure to the secondary structure to the quaternary and to the tertiary structure of protein, all those happen throughout the rough endoplasmic reticulum. Okay. Now the process that occur at B. So what is the process that occur at B?
It's the fixing.
Nitrogen fixing.
Nitrogen fixing.
Right. Nitrogen fixing. Now, pyramid of numbers for the wetland ecosystem show that there were very large number of organisms at the base of the pyramid, very few at the top. So when you talk about this, talk about, remember you have your kata, you have your apa tadi? You have your algae, which is eaten by the pipefish, which is eaten by blenny, which is eaten by the spotted sandpiper. You have grass, which is eaten by the snow goose, which is eaten by the bald eagle, right? So now, why is it that when you see the number of algae, there's a lot, and then there's a little bit of this, then a little bit of this, and even a little more of this? Okay, why? Very large number of organisms at the base of the pyramid. This is pyramid of numbers. The same goes with your pyramid of energy as well, and pyramid of biomass. But bear in mind, okay, answer this first, and then I'll mention to you about pyramid of numbers again. So now, why is it they have a large number of organisms at the base but small at the top? Sumaya, what's your answer? You are to answer this. How would you answer it, Sumaya? Okay, Rania, how would you answer this?
Little energy is transferred from one trophic level to another. Therefore, not enough energy is at the top of the pyramid.
Okay, I'll come back to you. You have to refine that answer, concise and precise. Okay, who else? Sakina, you want to try?
It's okay.
Amir, you want to try?
Okay.
Read the answer, Ami.
I only wrote energy is lost along the chain and the top consumers feed on multiple organisms below them.
That's all.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, read the answer.
I think my one is wrong. Organisms at the base of the pyramid can produce its own food from sunlight and reproduce faster than animals. Hence, the population of plants like grass and phytoplankton are in large quantities. However, organisms at the top of the pyramid are consume organisms at the bottom trophic level and gain very low energy from it. And to reproduce, they require lots of energy.
Okay, I mean,
Yeah.
take it.
Mm.
It's got nothing to do with reproduction.
Okay.
But you have some of it right. Okay, all the three answer. When you see that, you have to be precise and concise. Now, say you have the simple one, okay? I give you grass, right? Being eaten by the grasshopper. Being eaten by grasshopper is eaten by apa?
Be eaten by the
Okay, what does the arrow denotes?
Eaten by.
eaten by.
Daripada checkpoint hari tu lagi dah cakap dah.
Oh,
Eaten by. Apa Nina? Dah betulkan you 2 tahun lalu, ingat tak? It's not eaten by, it's energy flow. Okay, it's energy flow. Memang bila kita cakap tu, grass eaten by grasshopper, eaten by the snake. But it's not eaten by. The arrow denotes energy flow. Okay. Now, everyone take a deep breath, understand this. Because yes, you get it, but now, so what goes into grass? How do grass make their food?
Photosynthesis.
We're talking about light energy. So light energy, so grass, the producer, sebab tu kita punya, when you talk about any food chain, you always start with the producer. Because what do producer do? It change light energy
Chemical energy.
by means of photosynthesis.
Photosynthesis.
Right. So now this chemical energy is passed on to the grasshopper, and then the chemical energy is passed on to the snake, grasshopper, and then passed on to the eagle. Okay, you understand that, right?
Yeah.
But everyone take a deep breath. Think about it. Now the grasshopper eat 1,000 blades of grass. Grasshopper eat 1,000 blades of grass. Now out of that 1,000, only 700 will be digested. What happened to that 300 blade of grass?
It
will
is
be
lost.
digested.
It is lost as egestion. It is lost as
Undigested.
undigested food. Right. So remember, in that grass, in that 300 blade of grass, undigested grass, there is chemical energy. So there'll be loss of energy. And then the grasshopper also undergo cell respiration. So all living things undergo respiration. Respiration produces energy and heat, right?
Yes.
Heat during respiration, right? So this is loss of energy. So you notice here, loss of energy, this is loss of energy as well. So by the time it comes to the eagle, there's not enough energy to cater for a large number of eagle. This kind of question, you have to pay attention. They always ask, how do they disguise this question? They will ask you things like, okay, why is it eating? Okay, this one piece of paper, it says, you have a deforestation. The forest is cleared to make way to plant the soya. And the soy is used into cattle feed, meaning that they make pellet for the cattle to eat. Okay. Asks is why is it why is it more beneficial for human to eat the soya than eating the beef? Get it? So why is it eating the producer is better than eating the consumer? They can disguise this in various ways. Eating the soya is better than eating the beef.
Because there's no energy.
Yes.
Provide such energy.
This producer has the most energy. 1 mark there. Another mark is what? Kalau I
Consumer.
you have soya eaten by the cattle because you make it into cattle feed, eaten by human. Now human is the primary consumer, secondary consumer. So you have to mention, when eating the beef, make human a secondary consumer. Hence, human get less energy
Compared to eating
from the
just soya.
And you make a statement, soya is a producer with the most amount of energy. Get that? This is favorite question. Don't throw this away. Another one, they can disguise it by saying, why is it that when you talk about the pyramid, it's big at the base and it gets smaller? Or it says that kalau I suruh you buat food chain, the most you buatlah macam mana pun, how smart you think you are, you can only go up until 5. 6 the most if you squeeze in. But the most is 4 or 5. Why 4 or 5 in the food chain? The same answer. What's your answer again? Along the food chain. Okay, so you mentioned producer convert light energy into chemical energy through photosynthesis. The energy is passed on along the food chain. Along the food chain, there'll be energy loss. And remember, when you mention energy loss, you have to mention as what, otherwise you don't get marks. Okay, energy loss as undigested food and heat during respiration. Therefore, there's not enough energy to sustain more than 4 or 5 organisms in the food chain. Okay? So they can discuss in many ways, but you have to remember the reasoning is still the same. So it says a pyramid of numbers, there were very large numbers of organisms at the base of the pyramid, very few at the top. You mentioned what? There'll be energy loss along the food chain. Remember to put in as what? Okay, so there'll be energy loss along
Food chain through undigested food and heat from respiration.
undigested food
Food.
and heat
Heat loss from respiration.
during respiration. Right, okay. Now, next, what else? So, therefore, your conclusion is there's not enough
Not enough energy for the organisms at the top of the pyramid.
energy to support a large
A large
number of
number of
organisms at the
top of the pyramid.
right. This concept you have to remember. Don't try to memorize it. Understand it. Okay?
Alright.
Once you understand, and then you can just articulate. Like tadi Sakina, your answer was Rania tadi. You mentioned about apa tadi Rania? Read your initial one. You mean
There is little energy is transferred from one trophic level to the next. Therefore, not enough energy is at the top of the pyramid.
because you didn't mention, you lose 1 mark because you didn't mention energy loss. Get it? When you said little energy, yes, I understand, but you cannot assume that the examiner understand. Okay? This one time where I went to this Cambridge of examiners and everything, they came and they guide or whatever. But one thing that strikes me is they said, don't assume that the examiner understand. You never assume. When the examiner have to think, you lose marks. Okay. Oh, well, when you say just now, there's not in there's little energy, blah blah blah. But like how? Why is it little energy? You get it, Rana?
Yes.
Yeah. Don't assume that they know that little energy means energy loss. You have to articulate that there'll be energy loss along the food chain as undigested food and heat loss during cell respiration. That's it. Okay? You have to. And then therefore there's not enough energy to support a large number of organisms at the top. Or if the question asks, why is it more beneficial to eat the producer than the consumer? The answer should be the producer producer changes light energy into chemical energy by means of photosynthesis, and the chemical energy is passed on along the food chain. And energy flows as blah blah blah. Therefore, the producer contain much more energy compared to the primary or the secondary, whatever that equation gives. Okay, get it?
Yeah.
This is pyramid of numbers, but one biomass, pyramid of biomass, pyramid of energy. But except for when it comes to pyramid of numbers, at times it will be inverted pyramid of numbers. Like that, like that, like that, like that. When does this happen? They may give you a pyramid of numbers is not an ideal way of to present the number of organisms or something the whatever in the kenapa, because pyramid of numbers can be inverted like this. This is inverted pyramid of numbers where you have a small number of producer but a large number of primary consumer, and then so on and so forth. So when does this happen?
When many of the consumers digest the producers rather than the consumers.
This is pyramid of numbers.
Maybe there's
more number of consumers.
There's more number of consumers.
There's more number of primary consumers.
There's more number of
Question.
primary.
Of course, from here you know there are more primary consumer than the producer. My question is, when does this thing happen? In what situation?
When there's less quaternary
when the
consumers.
producer has been poisoned, or when there's like new primary consumer being brought into the habitat.
Okay, this is pyramid of numbers. If I say grass is eaten by the grasshopper, right? So it should be very broad, and then like, you know, you have like millions of grass, and then you may have like a few thousand of grasshopper, a few hundred rabbit, blah 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 blah, right? Okay. Now, when I say grassland, this may be the shape of the pyramid of numbers in grassland. When does this happen? Any idea? Now take a deep breath, everyone. Breathe in, breathe out. Ada satu pokok besar. Pokok ni berapa? Satu pokok je. How many caterpillars is on the tree? You may have 1,000.
It happens when the producer is in a large size.
You have 1,000 caterpillar there. You have 2,000 caterpillar on the big. How many small bird, or how many maybe you talk about some insects there, how many insects that eat the caterpillar, or how many little bird that eat the caterpillar? You have a few hundred birds that eat the caterpillar, and then you may have a few eagle that eat the small birds. You get that?
Oh yes.
When you have something like this, what is the number of producer here? You only have one tree, but on
Yes, when the producer is large in size.
caterpillar. And then you have, you understand, Nina? Do you understand?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, Balkis, do you understand?
Yes.
Yes, but this is like a grassland. How many grass do you have? You have like millions of grass. How many grasshopper do you have? How many?
Millions.
So very much, because they do ask. Pyramid of numbers, when do these things happen? Okay, or why pyramid of numbers cannot be used in certain situations? So your answer should be pyramid of numbers can be inverted when there's a small number of producers, such as a big tree, blah blah blah. You can give example. And
So wait, teacher,
your biology, your chemistry, your physics, especially your biology, if you understand and you can, but you cannot really articulate, but you know the concept, so you can give example, illustrate. Yes, I mean,
so when it's inverted, that means like there's only one big tree in the area.
that is very one example of it. Okay. Okay, now do the second one. I give you berapa minute? Okay, I give you 5 minutes. Try 5 minutes. Okay. Second one. Yeah, you okay so far?
Yes.
Sunflower is 0.45, height of the tall sunflower is 4.5, 10 times more, right? Dwarf plant like this one have a allele. Okay, but before that, everyone is okay with this question or anyone have problem? Okay. Now, the height of a dwarf sunflower is 0.45 and the height of the tall sunflower is 4.5. Define the term allele, I mean?
A gene that codes for a trait.
Yes. Remember genes that code for a protein, right? Codes for a trait. What trait are you talking about here, I mean?
Dwarf
And
tall
tall.
trait.
Okay. So remember, they can ask you what is genes. Genes codes for a protein. What is a gene? Genes are sequence of and
DNA.
that codes for a protein. Okay. You know how many genes you have? You have 4 billion genes in you. Billions. And then of that, some codes for a trait. What do I mean by a trait? A trait means tall, small, white, yellow, green, whatever. Okay, curly hair, straight hair. Apa tu? What else? Roll your tongue, not rolling your tongue. Those are what you call a trait. Okay, so it is
I ask to accept a version of a gene.
again.
A version of a gene.
That what? If you say a version of the gene, you don't get marks. A version of a gene that codes for a trait. You have to understand the concept of trait. When we talk about trait, what is trait? Dwarf, tall, roll your tongue, not rolling your tongue. Those are traits. Okay, sickle cell anemia or not. Those are traits. And what codes for that? Those are allele. Where do you find the allele? On the homologous chromosome. Right. Okay, the allele have to be in pairs, then only it can express the trait. So a form of a gene that do what? That codes for a trait. Okay. Now, shoot growth in plant controlled by auxin. Enzyme in shoot tip convert molecules of amino acid into auxin as shown in figure 2.2. Amino acid converted into auxin. Bulkase, mutation in DNA result in abnormal enzyme which does not catalyze the reaction shown.
Uh, I don't know if it's right, but I tried. When there's a change in sequence of DNA, the amino acid can be diffused in the cytoplasm. Therefore, there will be no enzyme substrate complex, hence no catalyst to convert amino acid to oxygen. I just wrote that.
Okay, Sakina, read yours.
When DNA mutates, the enzyme loses the shape of its active site. It will no longer be complementary to the shape of amino acid. Therefore, they cannot bind to each other and cannot create an enzyme substrate complex. So the reaction cannot be catalyzed.
Amir, read yours.
I didn't do this.
Don't do this. Sumaya, read yours.
I didn't know how to answer this one.
Nina, read yours.
Mutation in the DNA causes changes in the sequence of the DNA, which will synthesize an enzyme will differentiate. This enzyme cannot bind with the substrate, which is amino acid, to form enzyme substrate complex. Hence, it cannot catalyze the reaction.
Okay, you remember when we do mutation, I did mention that at times they ask you how mutation affect a phenotype.
Teacher, may I?
Yes. Yeah, Amir.
I did mutation in the DNA causes a change in the sequence of amino acids. This causes a change in the should I say gene or allele?
Apa? Baca dulu.
This causes a change in the gene. When the gene is transcribed and translated during protein synthesis, the enzyme that it produces, the enzyme produced will not be able to carry out its original function due to the change in the sequence of amino acids. Hence, the enzyme cannot change amino acids to auxin, and the dwarf plant contains this mutated gene.
Okay, the first few sentences you wrote just now, read again.
Mutation in the DNA causes a change in the sequence of amino acids. This causes a change in the gene.
Okay. Yang that one dah silap tu Min kata tadi. Mutation causes a change in the sequence of amino acid tu betul. Which causes change in sequence of DNA? Salah. Dia terbalik tu Min.
Oh,
Dia terbalik. First, because you have to remember, first you have your DNA, sequence of DNA. Katalah A, T, G, C, C, A, T, G. Right. Say here, this is gene. These are sequence of amino acid, sequence of DNA. I think you were planning to say sequence of DNA. Am I right?
oh, yeah. Sorry.
Okay. So this
Oh,
is sequence
okay.
of DNA. Right. Sequence of DNA that make up the genes. Right.
Sorry. Yeah.
And this will be transcribed into, say, this is your alanine, this is your leucine, and this is your pyrimidine or whatever, okay, amino acid. So this will make up the polypeptide. Okay, now go back to your protein synthesis. This polypeptide will be full and
Fold and
turn to become
turn to become
your secondary
secondary structure.
structure of protein, which then again will become your tertiary structure of protein, and gradually will become your
Quaternary
quaternary
structure.
structure of protein, right? Say with the active site. Active site. What determines the shape of the enzyme and the active site is the quaternary structure of protein, which in turn is determined by the tertiary, which in turn determined by the secondary, which in turn is determined by
the primary structure
of amino acid.
sequence of
Right. So
Yep.
instead of that, you have AGG and then CCA TGC. So here AGG, instead of ATG, you have AGG. So instead of leucine, you're gonna have maybe valine. You're gonna have like this instead, right? And then this, and then this. Okay, you see? So now a change, when you have a change, this is the mutated gene. When you have a change in the sequence of DNA, it will result in a change in the sequence of amino acid, therefore a change in polypeptide and a change in the shape
And the change of the shape of the active site.
that. So
And
you
only okay.
change is mutation, as in first you mentioned mutation, which is a change in sequence
Change in the sequence of DNA. Sorry, I accidentally put amino acids.
that codes for
Okay.
that
Causes
for the N.
that codes for the enzyme.
Okay. So mutation is a change in the sequence of DNA that codes for the enzyme. So therefore there'll be a change in the
Sequence of amino acid.
change. This will change the sequence
This will change this
amino acid that made up the polypeptide.
the polypeptide.
Therefore, it will change
The shape of the protein.
shape of the
Active site
active site of the enzyme. Right.
of the enzyme.
Active site of the enzyme. Therefore, there will not be any enzyme substrate complex.
Complex.
Can't bind to the amino acid. Or you can mention that there is no enzyme substrate complex. Therefore, there's no protein. Right. Okay. So the protein cannot be the protein that make the plant grow tall cannot be synthesized. Get it?
Yeah.
So you have to understand the concept first. Okay? You have to understand how protein synthesis work. So sebab tu, you notice when I do protein synthesis, we spend quite some time on it. You have to remember the sequence of DNA made up the genes, right? That codes for the polypeptide, right? So now when there's a change in the sequence of DNA, there'll be a change in the sequence of polypeptide. Okay, if you remember, kalau you tak tahu pun remember, enzyme have active site. If you don't know secondary structure, tertiary structure, quaternary structure, but do remember that the sequence of amino acid is very important because that will determine the folding of it. The hydrogen bond, the sulfur bridge and everything that will fold to become the active site. So when there's a change in the sequence of DNA, there'll be a change in the sequence of polypeptide that therefore there'll be a change in the shape of the active site of the enzyme. There will not be any enzyme substrate complex. Therefore, the enzyme cannot catalyze the reaction. This is 3 marks. Okay? You okay, Sumaya?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You want to copy this down? Yes? No?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You can copy this down. Okay. You have to be able to explain it properly. Now, 2 sunflower plant will cross 25% of the offspring produced were dwarf. How is it possible for 2 tall parent plant to have this percentage of dwarf offspring? Okay, Amir, you want to read the answer?
Okay, sure. Both sunflowers has an allele of big T and small t, which is tall and short, dwarf. The genotypes of their offspring are big T, big T, small t, big T, and small t, small t. The ratio of tall to dwarf is 3:1, which means dwarf is 25%.
Okay, so otherwise, what you can do is that you can just simply do your, so phenotype, you can do your genetic diagram is to get full mark, okay?
Oh wow.
Is tall times tall. Genotype,
Big T, small t.
Small t.
Big T, small t.
gametes,
Wait, teacher. Can I say that the allele for the tall plant is dominant than the dwarf allele for the dwarf plant?
yes.
Okay.
Your F1, big T, big T, big T, small t, big T, small t, small t, small t. So ratio is 3:1. You get full mark here as well. Okay.
Teacher,
Once, yes.
if I
3:1.
say that I write here both the two tall sunflower plants are carriers of the recessive allele, which is dwarf. When they will cross, the recessive allele is expressed.
Yeah. Nina, instead of saying a carrier, what is this? Both parents are hetero.
Heterozygous.
Yes, instead of using the word carrier, you said both parents are heterozygous.
Yeah.
Okay, heterozygous tall. Okay, continue now.
When they will cross, the recessive allele is expressed.
No. Okay, you have to explain this in words. In fact, okay. Both tall parents are
Heterozygous, big T,
heterozygous.
small t.
Already, right? So the gametes present both allele are present in the gametes. Both allele, meaning both allele of big T and small t, are present in the gametes. Hence, the crossing will result in a ratio of 3:1. Okay, get it now?
Teacher, can I say when the gametes are assorted,
When?
when the gametes are assorted, the ratio of dwarf to tall offsprings is 1:3?
Yeah, don't complicate things, man. Simply,
Okay.
okay.
So just say when the gametes are crossed or fused.
You mentioned tadi apa? Because this is only 2 marks, man. Okay,
Yeah.
all parents are heterozygous.
Heterozygous, big T, small t.
Big T, small t. Now the gametes present in both the gametes are big T, small t for both parents. Hence, the offspring ratio is 3:1. That's it. Okay, or otherwise, to make sure that you don't miss anything, draw this. Right, but when you draw your
Yes, yes.
diagram, it's the ethic of it is you have to write phenotype, genotype, gametes, F1. Okay, Ami, you okay? We don't want to lose any marks here. Okay, Ami?
Yes.
Draw this. Okay, draw this instead. If you're not sure how to put it in words, okay? Now, it shows how several strawberry plants can be formed from one parent plant. What kind of reproduction is this?
Cutting
Yeah, what kind of reproduction is this?
asexual.
Asexual reproduction.
Sexual reproduction.
Asexual.
Right. Okay. Now, so now explain the type of reproduction. So meaning they ask you to explain asexual reproduction. Okay, now read. Sakina, you want to try?
I wrote asexual reproduction.
Uh-huh.
And it is a type of reproduction that only requires one parent plant. Also, it doesn't require any sex gametes.
Okay, you get 2 marks there. You
Okay.
one more mark. Okay, who would like to try?
Teacher, can I?
I mean,
What do you call it? Wait, teacher, does it involve anything with mitosis?
okay, just read. I mean, just read.
Okay, asexual reproduction is where there is no fusion of haploid male and female gametes and produces an identical offspring to the parent. When the shoot of the plant is cut off, the cells in the shoot undergo mitosis to produce identical daughter cells. Some of the daughter cells differentiate to become cells in the root and root hair cells. Hence, the offspring is identical to the parent.
Like I said, yeah, you got 3 marks. I mean, but it's panjang. Jadi
Yeah,
dia
it's a
panjang.
bit too long.
Apa yang pesan? Apa teacher cakap dekat Nina semalam, Nina?
Be precise and concise.
Precise and concise. Otherwise, when you formulate, you may lose marks. Plus, minus is minus. You don't want to take the risk. Straightforward. Okay. So you mentioned that the type of reproduction just now. You mentioned, the type of reproduction is asexual. You get 1 mark there. Okay. Now explain. The parent plant, apa? The parent plant undergo
Mitosis.
mitosis, right? Okay, mitosis and the cell are
Differentiated.
differentiated. You tak payah root hair cells pun tak payah. I mean,
Okay, so just say differentiate. Okay.
the parent plant undergo mitosis and the cell are differentiated to form plantlet. Okay,
Plantlet, that's right.
you got the shoot. It's not the shoot. Mean this is what you call plantlet. Okay. To form the plant, the plantlet. The plantlet have
identical set.
Identical
Genetically identical.
to the parent plant.
Yeah.
That's
3 marks. Okay, Sakina, you see what's missing now?
So, kena mention yang genetically identical plantlet ke?
Yes. Okay, and you mention mitosis?
No.
No. Okay, you don't have to go saying that there's only one plant, blah 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 blah. Okay, one parent, blah blah blah. Like Amin said, fusion of gametes. No, because this is only 3 marks. Not that only 3 marks. It's worth 3 marks. So you mentioned what?
It says your reproduction.
The strawberry reproduced by means of asexual reproduction. That's 1 mark there. And then explain. The parent plant undergo
Mitosis.
and the cell are differentiated to become the plantlet. So these are 1 mark here. Get it? And then you go on saying all the plantlet grow to become a new strawberry plant which are genetically identical to the parent plant.
So, teacher, the thing that the person cut off there is called a plantlet.
Yes, those little thing here is called plantlet. Okay, get it? Everyone?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, So make sure you get 3 marks here. This is quite easy, but at times, you know, when you're not used to answering it concisely, precisely, you tend to go all around, beating around the bush unnecessarily. Okay. Now, explain the disadvantage of this type of reproduction. Remember when we talk about asexual reproduction, we discussed it before. You have to know
Respiration.
advantage and advantage.
Alright.
The advantage of it.
Advantage.
Okay, what's the advantage first? What's the
Oh,
advantage?
it produce consistent quality.
Yeah, because, explain, Nina. Because
Because the
Low variation.
Identical.
Low
Genetic.
variation. I mean,
Okay, first is
low variation kalau dia kata this is self-pollinating flower. Then low, but this is no variation at all. They are genetically identical. Right, so you talk about consistent quality, consistent produce, right? Okay, and then it takes a shorter time, so you can get more plant or
it's
more
economically good.
yes, more produce in a short period of time. Remember we discussed about the insulin and the bacteria last time, right? Okay, now, but what's the disadvantage of it, Rania? But it also advantages it takes
Competition for resources.
less energy. Okay. Now, what's the disadvantage of it?
If the parent is prone to a disease, all the offsprings are also
Yes.
exposed to the same disease.
Rania, what's the disadvantage of it?
I answered competition for resources are higher because they are close together.
Yes. Okay. If you don't separate the plant, because here there will be competition because they go by means of root. They grow from the roots, right? So competition, yes. But otherwise, generally, disadvantage of asexual reproduction. Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, it's good, but it's also a disadvantage because there's no
There's no variation.
variation. Okay, continue. Kan kata kalau you mention variation, you have to proceed. When there's a change,
when there's a change in the surrounding, they cannot adapt.
okay, they said they cannot
Adapt.
may not survive.
Not survive.
Okay, you cannot just say low survival. So you have to explain. When there's a change in the environment, they may not be able to adapt and survive. Hence, risk the danger of extinction. Right. What else? Disadvantage, they may inherit
Diseases from parent plant.
advantage or those
Disadvantage is traits.
advantages trait, right?
Sure.
Meaning that they may be prone to certain disease that the parent plant have. Yes, Nina.
Can I put the advantage, the pure breed?
Okay, when you talk about pure breed, what is pure breed? Pure breed is homozygous. Remember? Homozygous. Small h, big H. That is pure breed. Okay. Now, so disadvantage, there's less variation. So any change in the environment, they cannot adapt and they may not be able to survive. And then another one is what? They may inherit the disadvantage trait, right? That lower their survival. So what's another disadvantage? Is less. Okay, what else? Like what Sakina mentioned just now, you're talking about if not transferred, and transferred, human transfer it. Imagine this thing happened in the wild, no human intervention. So all the strawberry will grow around the parent plant. So this will cause overcrowding and competition for space. Right, you mentioned what? Okay, get it? So these three things. So disadvantage is no variation. Therefore, there's any change in the environment, the plant may not be able to adapt and survive, right? Okay, and then the plant may inherit disadvantage trait, for example, is susceptibility to certain disease, or inherit certain disadvantage trait, for example, disease. If not cut and transferred, it will cause overcrowd. The strawberry plant will, if not cut, if the strawberry plant is not cut and transferred, it will cause overcrowding, hence competition for space, nutrient, and light. Okay, okay with this? Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, now next one. This is on xylem. I'll give you 5 minutes. You done?
Yes.
Okay. It's a photomicrograph of some xylem vessel. One structure feature of xylem vessel and explain how this is related to the function of water transport. Remember, xylem carries water and minerals.
Water and minerals.
The adaptation, remember, recall back?
It's lignified.
It's
Fine. Okay, what's why?
lignified. It
To
provides strength.
strengthen the structure.
Okay, it gives strength. What else?
It's made of dead cells.
You have lateral. Right. Okay. So sorry, it has pits. Lateral pits. It has pits. What's the advantage of having pits?
Lateral flow of water.
Lateral flow of water.
Lateral flow of water. What else?
Hollow tube.
Hollow tubes.
Hollow.
To allow a continuous flow of water.
Yes, continuous flow of water. Right. And then remember, it's a dead tissue.
Wait, teacher, why it has to be a dead tissue?
So there's nothing. If it's a living tissue, you have to have the cell wall. You have to have the cytoplasm. So that will hinder the flow of water. Right. And
So it just passed through the dead tissue.
no, dead tissue, maybe live tissue requires energy. So this is doesn't require energy.
It doesn't require.
Said one structural feature of xylem vessel, explain how it's related to the function of the transport. So you can mention any one of it. It's lignified. The wall is lignified. Okay, the wall is lignified, hence it gives strength. Right. Or it's a hollow tube, hence a continuous flow of water.
It has pits.
It has pits, which allow lateral flow of water. Now explain the mechanism that is responsible for movement of water in xylem vessel. Okay. Rania, you want to try this?
But my answer tak cukup for marks.
It's okay. Just read so that we can help you.
Okay. Evaporation from cell walls and mesophyll. And diffusion of water vapor through stomata.
That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Who else? Balkis, read yours. Balkis?
Yes.
Yeah, just read.
Oh. I'm here a little bit. Water is transported through the lignified walls in the xylem vessels, and I didn't finish that. For the
Sakina, read yours.
Water is transported in the xylem vessels through a hollow tube in a continuous flow. Also, the tube is strengthened by the lignified wall to ensure the smooth flow of water.
Amin, read yours. Amin pula Amin.
Okay, I try. Oh, I mean, okay.
Yeah.
Amir or
Amin.
Amir. Oh, okay.
Amir.
And then Amin. Read yours, Amin.
Evaporation of water and transpiration in the leaf causes water potential in the leaf to decrease. This causes a transpiration of pull that pulls up water up the xylem against gravity. Capillarity of the xylem vessel also causes the water to go up even further.
Good, Amin. But be careful. I'll come back to that when you say capillarity in the xylem too.
Yeah, I don't know how to explain that.
Okay, I mean,
Teacher, can I try?
cohesive, yes, Nina.
The adhesive properties of the water allows water to travel up by means of capillarity. As
Okay,
the plant undergo transpiration, it provides a transpirational pool of water in the xylem.
you get 2 marks, but you have to elaborate further. You mentioned
Okay.
capillarity. Okay, those of you, when we do this, remember I said when you have a towel or you have a tissue, or remember when you do your apa nama tu, the chromatography.
Yeah,
You put chromatograph in the liquid and then the liquid travels up. Or you have a piece of tissue, you put in water, you notice the water travels up. You have a towel that dip in water, you notice it travels up to a certain level. That's due to the properties of water. Water have these adhesive properties. Adhesive means water adhere to the surface. And cohesive properties. Cohesive properties means that water pulls together. Later on you learn that this is due to the hydrogen bond, blah, blah, blah. Water pulls together, right? So the adhesive and the cohesive properties allows water to travel up to a certain level. This is what you call capillarity, okay? So first is, we talk about adhesive and cohesive properties of water allows water to travel up the xylem by means of capillarity. Okay, if you have a straw, you put a straw in the water, you notice it travels up a certain level, but it don't travel up all the way. So that is capillarity. Okay, adhesive and cohesive properties of water. Now, bila Amin tadi Amin kata apa?
sorry, I thought it was the xylem.
Not because of the xylem. It sticks on to the xylem.
Okay.
But the property is the properties of water, not the properties of xylem. So get it right. Okay. Now, so this is capillarity, but it only travel up to a certain level. Okay. Like you have a pipe, it only travel up. You have a straw. The water will only travel up here, but you want it to go all the way to your mouth, you have to suck it, right? So what happened is that you have your transpiration. What is transpiration? Loss of water vapor. But which part of the plant? You're talking about the
leaf.
The leaf. Which part of the leaf, I mean?
The stomata.
You're talking about apa? When water evaporate from the spongy
mesophil.
This is 4 marks. You have to explain properly. So water
evaporates
from spongy mesophil into the air space and diffuses out through stomata. Right. Okay. What process is this? This is evaporation. Right. When water evaporates from spongy mesophil into the air space and diffuses out through the stomata, so this will reduce mean? Water.
Will reduce the water potential.
Hydrostatic pressure.
In the leaf.
Hydrostatic pressure.
Okay.
So it reduces water pressure, hydrostatic pressure. Okay. Or remember last time I used the word it create a negative pressure. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And ask me what do I mean by negative pressure. Right. Negative pressure means that here, okay, so this reduces the water pressure at the top of the plant. Right. Okay. Because here you have the plant and you have the leaf. Right. So now when water vapor evaporate, so what happened? So when water vapor evaporate, so the water pressure here, okay, drops, right? So this will create apa? It create transpiration. This is a suction pressure. It suck it up like you want to drink from a straw.
Transpirational pull.
Yes, this is what I call transpiration pool. Okay, that pulls the water into a continuous column. a continuous column up here. Okay, this is how you explain. So those who are not so sure, remember this. Okay. So you first one mark here, and then here you mentioned about transpiration, and then they create the transpiration pool to continuous flow of water. That's 4 marks for you. Okay, get it? So how do you put it? Up the xylem by means of, okay, that is 1 mark for you. You mentioned capillarity. Then you mentioned about water evaporate from the spongy mesophil into the airspace and then it diffuses out through stomata. Here, I'm assuming that you understand the process of evaporation. Okay, remember the spongy mesophil is moist, so the water, the moisture will always evaporate into the airspace. So this increases the water, the concentration there, so it diffuses out. Okay, now the transpiration reduces water pressure at the top of the plant, causing transpirational pool or creating a transpirational pool that pulls the water in a continuous column up the xylem.
Continuous column.
Get that?
Yes.
Okay, now those of you who don't know how to answer, or just now you mentioned about it goes on through the lignified uninteracted environment. That's not what they meant. Okay, that is already being covered by the first question just now. They ask you characteristic of it. Or if they ask you what are characteristic of the xylem that help in the transport of water, yes, you talk about the lignin, the peat, the all those things. But here is the mechanism of movement of water. Understand? Okay, you want to copy this down or you're okay?
Okay.
Sure.
One,
Okay. Yeah,
You want to copy this down or you're okay?
I'm okay.
You're okay. You don't need to copy this down. Okay, make sure next time you come across it, you get full mark. Anyone copy this down? Or you take pictures of it if you want, okay? Because this is very, very important. 4 marks. You don't want to lose marks.
Wait, teacher, what is on the last one? That pulls out water in a column flow.
Apa? Because you
In a
talk about
topic.
what? The transpiration create, or the loss of water, or the transpiration water
Decrease in
pressure.
hydrostatic pressure.
So this create transpirational pool
Transpirational pool.
that pulls the water in a continuous column
Column.
up the xylem. Okay, remember, water flows continuously up the xylem. We're not talking about small plant. Yeah, we are talking about small plant as well as the big plant. If we talk about plant that are 100-meter tall and all those, they need to be something to pulse it out. What is that? Transpirational pool. Okay, one role of xylem vessel other than transport? I mean,
This one I did not.
huh? Okay, what do you think? One role of xylem. I mean, what do you think?
Support the plant.
To support the plant, right? For support. Now, the rate of transpiration is because the wood of the plant is actually the secondary xylem. The rate of transpiration is affected by several factors, including temperature and humidity. The effect of increase in temperature and the rate of transpiration. 3 marks. Anyone would like to read the answer?
An increase in temperature causes an increase in kinetic energy in the water molecules. Water molecules evaporate faster, and this increases the rate of transpiration.
Okay. Just now you mentioned what?
Increase in temperature.
Increase temperature, therefore, the water vapor, the water molecules gain extra kinetic
Kinetic energy.
So, apa? They
Evaporate.
energy, they move
They move faster.
faster and then they evaporate, increasing the rate of, and the rate of diffusion increases. Right, okay. So you talk about increasing the temperature will increase the kinetic energy of the water vapor. They move faster, hence there'll be more diffusion and transpiration increases, right? Increasing transpiration. So when you talk about this, you talk about kinetic energy, you talk about they move faster, increasing rate of transpiration, 3 marks. Okay, now, I don't think we have time for this one, but yeah. Okay, quick one. Okay, what you can do is that you can try finish all.